Hello, everyone. Welcome to Purpose in Parenting. My name is Jessica Israel, and this is a podcast for those of us who have found or are finding our purpose in parenting. Just a quick disclaimer, this is real life for real parents. So if you hear a child in the background, you hear some noise, we will not be editing it out. And the purpose is to really relate, to talk about the truth of what we go through, and to really just have that conversation amongst ourselves with others who can relate. So it may not be perfect, but guess what? Life with kids never is. Now, let's get into our new episode. So today, let's talk about breastfeeding. I'm really excited about this topic. I think it's an important one. And coincidentally, I came across an article recently that said, let's take a look here. I have it pulled up. It said that babies are recommended to have human milk and families should have more support. That is now the updated guidance from the American Academy of Pediatrics. Now, for many of us, we'll say, well, of course, obviously, breast milk is amazing. Every doctor has always agreed to that. The breast milk is amazing. It has amazing properties. It's literally something that your body crafts specifically for your child. Maybe not all of you are aware, especially if you haven't breastfed before, but literally your baby's saliva, when you're actually breastfeeding, and I don't mean pumping. Now, pumping is still great. You still get the nutrients, of course. But specifically, when you latch your child to your breast, the saliva essentially sends signals to your body of what your baby needs. So if your baby is lacking particular nutrients, things like that, or it needs more of a particular nutrient, your body, which is amazing, right? Women, we have amazing, amazing blessed bodies that just do wonderful things. Your body will create more of that nutrient. I'm not kidding. You can look this up. This is true. And it's awesome, So your body is also able to tell as your baby is growing. So while your baby may need more of one thing at one particular time in their life, it'll change later on. Or maybe they need less when they're 2 weeks old and they need more when they're a month and a half. And guess what? Your body will produce that. And then obviously the more that you breastfeed and the more that you pump, the more your body will produce milk, because your body does really produce it as an on-demand thing. So for anybody who has tried breastfeeding or is currently trying it and maybe you're getting a little discouraged, do not get discouraged. Your body will keep producing that milk. Another thing too, throw away in the trash anything that somebody said about a schedule. Feed on demand. That's the thing about breastfeeding. You cannot overfeed your child when you breastfeed, because your child is going to be getting different amounts each time that they nurse. So breastfeed constantly, but that's also part of why for some people it's not for everyone, because it really is a commitment. It's worth it, definitely worth it, but it is a commitment that you have to be willing to make, that you're saying, okay, I'm doing this for my child. You are giving over your body for your child, and not everybody can mentally take that on. So I understand that for other people, in order for them to be the best mom, in order for them to be mentally sound, they may need to formula feed or to even supplement with formula because, it's just too stressed when they're trying to pump extra or things like that. I understand, everyone's situation is different. And that's one thing we don't do on this podcast is we don't judge here, right? Everyone has to be the best parent that they can be within their situation. And sometimes that means doing things a little bit differently. But one of the things about breastfeeding is that also if you do have a partner, their support is really important. Because, essentially when you're breastfeeding, it is more than just nursing. You really become the primary parent, and you have to be aware of that. Sorry, guys, your husband, boyfriend, partner, whoever you've got there, it's not going to be the same. Now, if you're pumping, yes, they can take over some sessions, but pumping is still time you have to put in. There's planning involved, because it's not like you can just take a scoop of formula, shake it up in some water, and walk out the door. You have to make sure you have that milk pumped ahead of time. You have to plan. Sometimes that means waking up in the middle of the night or after feeding, pumping a little extra, or pumping on one side during a feeding. And then, putting that in the freezer for later and building up your supply. Maybe you may even try to take some supplements, to help you build up the supply. I mean, you have to do what works for you and your body. Different supplements work for different people, because giving yourself more particular vitamins or minerals that may help your body produce a little bit more. But really, the main thing is honestly constantly breastfeeding and constantly pumping is really going to help you produce the most milk, more than any supplement can. Although some can, help increase supply, of course. But that's a really important thing. I wanted to get that out the way, because if anybody is breastfeeding or started and they're getting discouraged, it can be a very stressful time. I know, when you're doing it, you're constantly worried, is my baby getting enough? Or, I'm pumping, but it doesn't seem like I'm getting that much and I want to get more. So it can definitely be a stressful time, but as crazy as it sounds, try not to be stressed, because stress will actually make it harder for you to produce your milk. Stress will actually reduce your supply. So again, with that, understanding that if you decide to breastfeed, you are going to be the primary parent. And you just really have to be okay with that. I know we're in a society where we're saying, well, everything should be split between, both partners. But that's not real life. Everything can't be split, especially if you're doing something like breastfeeding. Yeah, they may be able to help if you've pumped and, they can give the baby a bottle, but it may be that their tasks are different tasks. It doesn't mean you have to do everything, but it just means that that one task may be the one that's really primarily on you. And, partners can really help their, wives or girlfriends breastfeed and nurse by really taking on those additional tasks. So cooking the meals, cleaning up the home, changing the diaper, watching the child after, so that then you can do a pumping session. All of that's really important. Breastfeeding really does take teamwork, because it is a large time commitment. But again, it is worth it. Your baby is getting the best nutrients. And for the moms who want to lose a little bit of baby weight, actually, when you breastfeed, you were burning a lot of calories. So that also helps as well. But breastfeeding is amazing. It builds a really great bond between you and your child. Yes, obviously, anytime you feed your child, you're hugging them, you're cuddling them, even if it's with a bottle. But when you have that skin-to-skin contact with your child, when you are breastfeeding, there is just a bond that you have and that you create that is unmatched. It doesn't mean you won't have a bond if you don't do that, but it's a different type of bond. And it's a bond that you only understand if you breastfeed. If you haven't breastfed, you may say, well, no, it's not different. It is different. It's not saying it's better or worse or anything like that, but it is different. And, with that also, there are things you may need to do differently for your sanity. If you decide to breastfeed, sleeping close to your child or co-sleeping safely. Co-sleeping, I know everyone acts like it's a dirty word, but the reality is a good majority of parents co-sleep. They just don't say anything because it's been given such a negative rap. But you obviously have to do it safely. You have to make sure you don't smoke or drink or anything like that. If you're a person who tosses and turns in your sleep, don't co-sleep. But, you can even have a bassinet right next to the bed. And that's a great way, or a sidecar carriage too, to really protect your child. But co-sleeping is really helpful if you're breastfeeding, okay? Because all you have to do is roll over and feed your child. Your child, if they move a little bit, you're right there in the middle of the night. You're not having to get up, go to a different room. They're crying. You're up. It honestly makes sleep a whole lot better, especially if you're breastfeeding. It is really great. So, like I said, whether it be, in a sidecar crib, in a bassinet next to the bed, if they're older and you feel more comfortable, like I said, you have to judge the situation yourself. This is a personal decision you have to make. even, in the bed with you if you have it protected and you can follow the safe sleeping practices that you can find online, then it's great. It honestly makes it a lot easier. Believe it or not, if you do that, you'll probably be getting more sleep than a lot of other moms that are dragging throughout the day because they have to get up, they have to go to another room, the baby's crying, then maybe the baby, is having a tough time getting back to sleep, or you put them in the crib, they wake back up immediately. If you're right next to them, you really eliminate a lot of that. But what I started this episode off with was the article, okay? The article, they finally admitted that breastfeeding is best, that human milk is best. Who would have thought? Again, I don't want anyone to think that I'm saying they're a bad parent or a bad mother if they don't breastfeed. Sometimes you have to supplement because of your lifestyle, and sometimes it just does not fit for you. Either you can't produce milk, maybe you've adopted, or just for your mental sanity, it just does not work for you. Because remember, a healthy mom is what makes a healthy baby. You have to be mentally and physically healthy for your child. You have to be able to think clearly. You don't want to be overtired. You don't want to be overstressed or any of that, because that's not good for your child. So if you feel like breastfeeding is too much, then don't do it. But if you can, at least try. It's really important. And I'm glad that the American Association of Pediatrics is finally putting this out there. Because for a long time, honestly, I feel like breastfeeding moms were treated quite badly. I mean, in this country, look at how they look at you. Now, mind you, if you go other places, a lot of times people don't care if you are covering or not, or whatever the case may be if you breastfeed. But for some reason in this country, in America, we treat it as if it's something odd, as if it's something gross, and it's the most natural way. I mean, I don't want to compare us to animals, but every animal breastfeeds. It is how you naturally do things. When the baby comes out of the womb, it knows how to breastfeed. It may take a little moment for it to learn how to latch properly, but it knows. It's a natural thing for your child, and it's a natural thing for a mother. And I would like to see it encouraged more. And I think a problem is that we've heard things like, well, formula feeding and breastfeeding is the same. Or formula feeding is better because it has additional nutrients that your breast milk may have. Now they're saying that's not true. And what upsets me about it is that they've told mothers the opposite for years. And these moms are literally just doing the best they can. They're following the doctor's advice. They say, well, hey, you guys are the experts. I'm going to listen to you on this one. The science said that this is good for my child. Now, the truth is coming out. The truth is coming out. And because the reality is that formula didn't always exist, okay? Formula has really been created to force moms back to work right away and to say, hey, you don't need to be home with your child. If we're going to be 100% honest, that's what it's about. Now, maybe you're the mom who wants to get back to work quickly. That's fine. But that's really why they started all of this. It was a way to say, well, get to work. Or, you don't need to be with the child all the time. And then if we're being truly 100% honest as well, especially with the history of this country, a lot of people did not breastfeed their own child. They literally had baby nurses. And you're going far back. Sorry, I hate to bring it up, but slavery. They had slave women feeding their children. So they didn't have to do it because breastfeeding is a big deal. And so, I mean, there's a lot that really goes into that. There's a lot if you really look into the history of why people really don't breastfeed their own children, and even the introduction of formula. And then when you look at it, you realize, wait a second, like my milk is what's best for my baby at the end of the day. Hey, also, if you can get milk from a milk bank from other mothers who have extra breast milk, I mean, I believe they test those and things like that, depending on where you get them from. If that's something you prefer to, go right on ahead if you need to supplement that way. Like I said, we're a no judgment zone here. We're just speaking the truth of what it is and talking about these topics that really pertain to us. So jumping back to the article, it even says that, right now we require some social and systemic changes when it comes to workplace access and feeding stigma. That is the truth. And that is literally what I was just saying about how we've viewed breastfeeding. We have demonized breastfeeding in many ways. We don't provide enough support to mothers for breastfeeding. Breastfeeding, you need to be home. Yeah, you can pump a bit at work, but really you should be able to be home and be in a comfortable environment. That doesn't mean you can't work from home. Maybe you want to work remotely. Maybe, your family needs that income, whatever the case may be, or you just enjoy it. But there should be an option. There are not enough options for breastfeeding mothers. And in fact, now they're saying, it says the Pediatrician Association's most recent guidance stressed the recommendation that infants be fed exclusively with human milk for the first 6 months of life before other nutritious foods are introduced. Literally, the doctor who led the report, authored the report, said human milk is all a baby needs for the first 6 months of life. Breast milk is unique in its nutrients and protective effects, and really quite remarkable when you look at what it does for a child's developing immune system. Yeah, it even says, research suggests the benefits of feeding human milk include decreased rates of lower respiratory tract infections, severe diarrhea, ear infections, and obesity. Babies given breast milk also have a lower risk of sudden infant death syndrome, according to the AAP. And they do acknowledge that not everyone can feed their baby exclusively with breast milk. But the thing is that they're finally saying that this is the best option. And I remember coming across this commercial where it showed a baby feeding, and it was just the sound, and it was like, oh, there is no difference. And then it showed at first it made it seem like the baby was nursing, and then it showed the baby was on the bottle, and it was like, oh, that's the best sound. The best baby is a fed baby. And it's like, yes, you want your baby to be fed. You'll do whatever you need to do to make sure your baby is fed, of course. But it's really misleading to act like something else is comparable to breast milk or is the same as breast milk. There is nothing the same as breast milk. Breast milk will help with baby acne. If you put it on your baby's face and they have baby acne, it helps with eczema. Actually helps with pink eye. I mean, you can look this stuff up. Breast milk is truly amazing. And then especially where we have so many things going on in this world now, infectious things, breast milk really helps your baby with their immune system. I just really wanted to touch on this and give some attention to it because I feel like breastfeeding moms have been disrespected, if I'm perfectly honest. We've been made to seem like that what we do is not important. It doesn't matter. It's no big deal. We need to just cover our baby up or go feed them in the bathroom, which is gross. When anyone says that, I say, well, do you want to go eat your lunch in a bathroom? You're free to go there. I'm not feeding my child in the bathroom, We've been made to feel like that there's nothing special about what we're doing. But there is. There's a big commitment. I mean, breastfeeding moms know you go through the pain, the bites, the scratches, the glibs, all these different things. But in the end, it is worth it. All we're trying to do is give our child the best. And now finally, they are admitting that breast milk is the best milk. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast today. I really appreciate the support. If you would like to get in touch or stay connected, please visit us on our Twitter or Instagram at PurposeInParent. Also, if you're interested and would like to send a personal donation, because this is a labor of love, my Cash App is Torah Blessed, TorahBlessed. Thank you again so much for the support, guys, and I really look forward to chatting again next time.